Hi, folks. Once again, I'm Gary Ryan from Organisations That Matter. I'm delighted to be providing today's session, number 2 in our pilot program for club committee members for Monsu Caulfield. So on behalf of Monsu Caulfield, this is session number 2, discover the power of constructive self-talk and how to foster it amongst your committee members. As I said, it's a delight to be with you all again today. Thanks for coming on board. And for those of you that are going to be watching the recording, quick welcome and introduction, which we're doing right now. I'm going to explain mental models and how they influence self-talk. We're going to identify some examples where negative self-talk might hinder your performance. We're going to explain the self-talk model, explain constructive self-talk and what that means, and explain the type of hard work that is required for success and how that relates to your self-talk. And of course, throughout the session, we'll just keep relating it, not just to your committee roles. I think you're going to find this is useful for all aspects of your life, but you will actually see it surface itself among your various committee roles. Feel free at any time to ask questions, either unmute yourself and just ask the question, use the chat function inside Zoom to ask a question as well, if you like, and we'll talk about the next session. So a key concept that's really important to understand self-talk is understanding your mental models. Now, just in your chat function, use the letter Y for yes or N for no if you've ever heard the term mental models before. Y for yes, N for no. Is mental models something that you've heard before, or is this going to be new for you? Yes, I've heard about it. No, I haven't. Thanks, Kerry, Ritu, and Alina. Great. Thank you, Kieran. Okay, so it's new for all of you. Terrific. Okay, and you will see once again that this does impact so many aspects of your lives. So if you think of an iceberg, a classic iceberg, your behavior sits above the waterline, and that behavior is observable and is able to be seen by other people. So the way you perform your committee role, for example, is going to come through in your behavior and is observable. For example, right now, you've turned up to this session and that's observable. We can see that you're here, okay? Below the waterline sits your mental models, and these are your subconscious theories about how the world works. So they are your theories that directly inform your behavior. They come from your life experience and they're fundamentally subconscious. So you don't know that you've got them in most cases. A lot of the executive coaching work that I do and the work that I do in high performance space, I literally help raise the iceberg out of the water so people that I work with can become more aware of their mental models, because all they are theories. So for example, we just spoke about your behavior of being here today. My guess is that you've got a theory that turning up and spending your time with us in this session is going to be valuable for you. Is that a reasonable assumption? Y for yes, N for no. Is that a reasonable assumption that you've turned up today because you believe it's going to be valuable for you in some way? Thank you. Everyone's saying a yes. So you've actually had this theory, this mental model, that this series that Kieran's advertised to you is going to be worth your time and effort. And then that's directly informed your behavior, which we can actually see, just to show the link between your theories and how it impacts behavior. Okay. So all of us have personality preferences. For example, some of us are more extroverted and some of us are more introverted. A lot of extroverts don't realize, but one of their theories is they need to talk to make sense of the world. So they'll start a conversation saying we should go left. And as a result of the conversation, end up deciding, no, let's go right. Okay. So, we've got Sadman joining us as well. So welcome, Sadman. Great to see you again. So we've got our folk, all of us with our different personalities. We also have more introverted people. Now, more introverted people, one of the core theories that helps the way they operate is they like to make sense of things before they speak. So a more introverted person will decide we're going left and stick to that once they've made that decision, but they won't say it out loud until they've tended to make the decision. So the introvert's looking at the behavior of the extrovert saying, why are you saying go left and then say going right? That's really frustrating. Why are you speaking when you haven't decided what you really want to do yet? And when we're saying why like that, that's because we're using our theories about how the world works to judge someone else's behavior. Okay. So we're constantly using our own mental models to judge the behavior of other people. And you can't not do this. We're designed to do this. For example, while we were evolving over time, we had to work out if the silhouette in the distance, which was based on limited information, was safe, was food, or otherwise. And certainly we had to work out if it was danger, because we didn't want to get too close to it and then work out it was danger. So our brains evolved to have these theories fundamentally to keep us safe. Does this make sense for folks? Okay. So they also reflect our personality preferences. Again, press Y for yes, N for no with this statement. Does it make sense that us human beings like to be right? Does it make sense that we like to be right? Y for yes. Okay, again, you're all agreeing, yes, it does. So our mental models are theories that we have that direct our behavior. They also direct what we see. They influence the data that we're actually seeing in the distance, okay, or even right in front of us. And because we like to be right, our mental models are self-reinforcing, which means we select data that reinforces what we already believe to be true. So if on your committee, hopefully this is just a silly example and isn't true or accurate, but if you had someone that was in your committee and you had a mental model that they were not very competent, that they weren't very good at their job, you would be looking for data to keep reinforcing that, in fact, your attitude is correct, that they're not competent, and you actually might miss selecting the data that shows you that they actually do have some competency. It could actually impact the way that you're seeing people and the data that you're consistently seeing and picking up from people. Welcome, good to see you joining us again today. So we seek evidence to prove what we already believe to be true, and they direct our behavior as we've seen. Now, folks, does anyone want to unmute yourself for the answer to this question? Is if we're selecting data that's based on our theories that we might not even be conscious that we've had, and they're self-reinforcing, what could be the impact of that on learning? What could be the impact on learning if we're selecting data that reinforces what we already believe to be true? Does anyone want to unmute yourself and just share your thoughts on that question? Kerry.
Well, like you kind of only view things from like your own perspective. You don't like tend to really have an open-minded view when approaching things. So you only learn half of what you want or you need actually.
Yeah, spot on. You're just going to be using that perspective, and we can't help but have our own perspective, Kerry, but it's going to potentially limit our learning, right? We're potentially going to shut ourselves off. Have any of you heard of the growth mindset? Is that a term you've heard through your studies or through reading? Have any of you heard that? Please unmute yourself if you have. No, at the moment we haven't. So in really simple terms, Carol Dweck, professor, did some research on our openness to learning versus our closedness to learning. So there's a new word for you, closedness. I'm not sure if I just made that one up. But if you have an open mindset, when you haven't mastered something yet, you use the phrase, I haven't mastered this yet. You use that talk. I haven't done this yet. I haven't got to know this person fully yet. I haven't seen all of their capabilities yet. We use that sort of language, opening up the possibility to us to be able to see data that we haven't yet seen, versus a fixed mindset where we go, no, Gary's like this, and we put him in a box and we don't believe he can do anything more, or we might even do that to ourselves. Oh, I can't do that. Now, you might be noticing how our mental models start to influence the words we say out loud. Public speaking, oh, I can't do that. Or there might be a new opportunity to take on a role within the club committee. I've never done that before, therefore I can't do that. I couldn't do it. I've never done it before. Could be easy self-talk that we could have, which is actually coming from our theories or our mental models, okay? Now, mental models actually aren't right or wrong, and it's not about them being right or wrong. It's, are they useful? Is this mental model useful for what I want to achieve? So for those of you that are turning up to your second session in this series, that would appear to me as evidence that you've got evidence from the first session. Yeah, it was probably useful, it was helpful, It did match my theory about some benefit I thought I was going to get. So it's actually worth me turning up again. Okay. And that's the judgment to have. Is your mental model useful? And what we'll see is a lot of negative self-talk, which leans itself more to a fixed mindset, is actually not very helpful for us achieving success, both individually and collectively as a club committee. At any stage, folks, if you need me to repeat anything, please just let me know, and I'm more than happy to repeat it, especially when you all of you on the call said you'd never heard this term before, mental model. So it is brand new, and I'm absolutely fine to repeat and give other examples if you need them, okay? So also from a club committee perspective, we want to have our mental models or theories shared. We want to have shared theories about what success looks like for the club, and we want to have shared theories about how we're going to get there. And that even might come down to shared theories about what success for an event looks like, and shared theories about what we're going to get there to create that event. If we don't have shared mental models about success, and if we don't have shared mental models about the strategies or tactics we're going to use to get there, what do you think could happen to the event that we're trying to organize? If we haven't got a shared view of success or a shared view of the things we need to do to get there, what could happen? Please feel free to unmute yourself. I'm sure one of you have been involved with an event that maybe didn't quite go the way that you want. What's your best guess, folks? You're not going to be wrong. Just have a guess. What do you think would happen if we've got different views about what success is that we haven't clarified, and or we've got different views of the things we need to do to create that event success? What could happen?
The event's not going to turn out really successful.
Exactly. It's not really rocket science, is it, Alina? It's just not going to be very successful. So one of the things we've got to do on our club committees is actually spend some time using our conversational skills, which we're going to focus on further in this program, to actually create those shared mental models so that we increase the chances, Alina, as you've said, to create success. Otherwise, it's probably not going to be, but we might not know why. We might just go and blame lots of people for it not being successful, when in fact there was never a shared understanding in the first place. So the words you say often reflect your mental models, even when you don't realize that that's what's happening. So the language we use, the words that literally come out of our mouths, often reflect our mental models. So our self-talk that even goes on our heads, that doesn't get out loud, but it goes on in our heads, equally can reflect our mental models, okay? So self-talk and performance. This is a key model for you, okay? And once again, I'll be adding this presentation to the Miro board at the end of the session for you to go and download. If you didn't download the presentation from the other day, it is on that Miro board from the other day if you've gone and bookmarked that as well. So the self-talk that we have in our heads, or we might just say out loud to ourselves, creates a self-image. And that self-image is like a future video or whatever it is that we're talking about. That future video, then when we're in the world of performance, when we're actually doing, so I'm going to deliberately choose public speaking, because that tends to be one that a lot of people get very nervous about, or they've got a lot of negative self-talk about. And you'd be, as students, obviously you've got lots of public speaking you have to do with your various academic presentations that you have to do for groups, etc. Or it could be having to do self-talk as it relates to your club committee work and promoting events and those sorts of things, or even doing things online like we're doing here today. So if you say, I can't do, if your self-talk is, I'm not a very good public speaker, as soon as you say that, you create a future video in your head that matches that negative self-talk, which in this case would be, you would imagine yourself failing in public speaking. You would imagine yourself, in fact, see yourself making errors. Then when you're actually, if the opportunity came along where you had to do public speaking, and so you're now in what I would call the world of performance. So you're actually now doing public speaking. What tends to happen is, remember with mental models, we like to be right. Remember that? While we're in the world of performance, we actually want to seek out evidence that proves we can't do it. So we become hyper conscious of making mistakes when doing public speaking. And that way we can say to ourselves, see, I knew I couldn't do this. I knew I wasn't very good. Is this making sense, folks? So what I'd like you to do in the Miro board, in the first screen there, please, is as we've got there, is just add a sticky note for your first name, please. So get a sticky note for you and just add your name onto that board. And then once you're ready, on frame 2, I'd like you just to pick a row. So you'll notice that there's a bunch of categories across frame 2. And where it's got, please identify examples of negative self-talk, just grab a sticky note and go, okay, for each row, just add a single sticky note. So under this column where it's got, please identify examples of sticky notes, because we're going to move across the to the other sections of this board as we progress through today. But if you've ever had negative self-talk, so often it can relate to exams. You might have negative self-talk about an interview. You might have negative self-talk about a subject, that I can't do this subject because of the content, for example. And just grab a sticky note when you're ready and just provide some examples of where are you aware that you've either done some negative self-talk, or it may have been you witnessed someone else do some negative self-talk. So we're on frame number 2, folks. So Kerry's adding one there. Thank you, Kerry. So if you just, so it could be not applying for a leadership role. Okay, that's a terrific one. Okay. Keep going. Yep, keep adding more to it. So Alina, Sadman, you might not have that link yet. So I'm just going to pop that, and I'm just going to pop the link for today's Miro board. Sorry about that. We popped it in there at the very start there. So Sadman and you've got the link to the Miro board there. So we've got, you can't do it, you're going to fail. Okay, terrific. So as we do, yep, just keep at it. And once you've added your sticky note, if someone else is already in that row, just move your sticky note to a clear row, please. I've got no idea what's going on. That's a great one. Thank you. So these are real life examples of negative self-talk, folks. And it's amazing how common they are. They're really common. It's very common for us to use this various forms. So I've got no idea what's going on. Haven't taken initiative due to being embarrassed. That's a really good one. I feel embarrassed if I do this, and often that embarrassment will come from a layer of negative self-talk that relates to what if I get this wrong, and often that is part of a fixed mindset. So when we've got a fixed mindset, we tend to avoid taking risks that might highlight that we don't know something. Okay, so a fixed mindset, and often when you've been very successful in secondary school, and then you get to university. So let's say you got really high grades at secondary school, and in Australia's sense, you got a really high ATAR. That means you've been rubber stamped by the education system that you're smart. And because you've been rubber stamped as smart, the last thing you want to do is risk not looking smart. And that can mean that we then avoid situations where we might not be seen to be initially so smart. So we actually sort of corner ourselves off. It's a very interesting phenomenon where successful people at secondary school, excuse me, can end up creating a fixed mindset. And that's why it's so good to have this opportunity to speak with you about this, because it's about, I'm not there yet. And I'm going to use my skills of learning that if something's important, I'm going to have a go and overcome that that negative reaction. Some great examples on the Miro board there, folks. Again, we've got not speaking out because you're afraid you're wrong or you're going to offend others is another really good example, okay? I won't say anything because I might be wrong or I might offend someone. So that can come back to maybe not having the confidence in the conversational skills, which is, again, why that is in this series. All right, so we're just going to continue with the presentation to go and see what we're going to, so what we can actually do with this, okay? What can we actually do with this negative self-talk that's very, very common and normal? It's not abnormal to have it, okay? So it's not abnormal to have this. So the starting point is to be able to use constructive self-talk. So this phrase is the framework of a growth mindset that reflects constructive self-talk. I will be the best at this difficult conversation that I can be today. I will be the best in this leadership role that I can be today, or I will be the best at applying for this leadership role that I can be today. I will be the best in this interview that I can be today. I will be the best at this exam that I can be today, and so on and so on and so on. That's the framework. So the letter X is just to have you insert whatever the self-talk or the topic might be about. So it's not saying you're the best in the world. It's saying I'll be the best I can be today. And that demonstrates and creates a future video of someone who is learning. So learning means if I'm starting at a 2 out of 10, I'll be more like a 2.5 or 3 out of 10 the next time. And then I'll be a 4 out of 10 and so on and so forth, versus saying I have to be the best in the world. Just type the letter Y for yes, question mark for I'm confused, or N for no in the chat function, please. Y for yes, N for no, it's not making sense, or a question mark, I'm a little bit confused. Okay, thanks, Kieran, Ritu, thanks, Kerry, thanks, Alina, thank you, okay. So that's making sense, great. So I will be there, and this is really important. Equally, you will notice other people use negative self-talk. You will notice it come out of other people's mouths. Now you're going to know, that's reflecting a mental model. They think they can't do it. And what we can do is we can influence and say, hey, you don't have to be the best in the world. You just need to be the best you can be today. Like when you give it a go, I can even help you and support you in focusing what you need to do, which is where we're going to go next. Next is, you can't just self-talk your way to success. You can't just say, I'm going to be the best in the world, or I'm going to be the best I can be today. And all of a sudden that's enough. No one can self-talk their way to success. Some people think you can, but you can't. What you have to do with your self-talk is match it with smart, hard work. A guy called Anders Ericsson is the world expert on expertise. So whether that expertise be a dancer, an actor, a business person, a politician, anyone you can think of in any category that's successful, a doctor, a nurse, doesn't matter the category, a sports person, none of them have achieved success without hard work. You yourselves on this call may be the sort of people where throughout your life, people have said things to you like, oh, it's just easy for you because you're so smart. I don't know if that's ever happened to any of you. People say, oh, it's just easy for you. Well, it's actually not. You actually do the hard work in the background that they don't see. You do the work. You turn up to sessions like this, for example. This is part of smart hard work. Now, there's a difference between not smart hard work, sometimes called dumb hard work, and smart hard work. Dumb hard work can feel just as busy as smart hard work. So it takes up just as much time. So what's the difference? The difference is smart hard work is practicing the techniques that actually work. I call them the techniques that matter. So let's say if we focused again back on public speaking, because again, it's an easy one for people to understand, is that you would go and find out, well, what are the techniques for public speaking? And you would practice them. You would do the smart hard work of actually practicing those techniques. You would use the self-talk that I will be the best public speaker that I can be today. And the reason why this is at the bottom of the balance beam here, folks, is that while you're actually doing the public speaking, You focus on the technique, not the outcome. You focus on what are the things I have to do to be a good public speaker. So if you're an actor and you're on stage, you're focusing on the techniques of being an actor and being on stage. If you're a sports person, you're focusing on the techniques. If you've got to kick a penalty goal to win the game in a penalty shootout, you focus on the technique of a penalty kick. You don't worry about if it's a goal or not, because you will have been practicing that technique as part of your smart hard work. So smart hard work is discovering the techniques that matter and then practicing them. So when you are in the real world, the world of action, you're able to focus on the techniques. Are there any questions about this part of the concept? Because it's really important to understand. Okay, so smart hard work is the secret for high performance. You've nearly always, it's rare where you don't need to do your research to find out what the smart hard work is that you need to practice. You've got to go and do some research. And when I say research, I don't necessarily mean academic research. I mean, you've got to go and speak to people who know. You've got to go find the experts, right? So for example, I'm an expert on these topics that Monsu's found for me to be able to deliver this information for you here today. So the technique that matters is the technique that will work, but it must be practiced. And it's the practice of that work that is what the smart hard work actually is, okay? Then when you're in the act of performance, you focus on the technique that you have been practicing, not the outcome. So if you're in a difficult conversation with someone, you're going to be the best at that difficult conversation that you can be today. You've learned some techniques about listening, etc., that we're going to teach you throughout this program. And while you're in that conversation, you're not worried about the outcome. You're just focused on putting those techniques into practice. So your focus and attention is on the moment while you actually are in the moment. So I'm going to stop the share now. Back to the Miro board. This is a little bit trickier. When you look at your, just grab a couple of those lines that have just moved on us. When you look at your little sticky note that you popped in there, folks. So I'm just going to move a couple of these to a line. Okay, so we've got one line each. There we go. In your row, what might be the corresponding constructive self-talk? So what would that "I will be the best at this today" look like? So grab a sticky note. And in the context of the sticky note that you've added under the column of please identify examples of negative self-talk, what would be the corresponding constructive self-talk actually be for you? So I'll give you a moment to do that. And don't worry about being wrong, okay? It's not about being wrong. It's about having a go. We're going to use a growth mindset. We're going to understand. You might not fully understand these concepts yet, okay? And this is just part of the learning process. So it's not about being right or wrong. It's about having a go. So I won't be able to find time to contribute. What might the constructive self-talk for that one look like? You can't do it, you're going to fail. What might the constructive self-talk for that one look like? Not speaking out because you're afraid of offending others. So what might that look like? And if you go, look, if you're sitting there going, I'm completely stuck, please feel free to unmute yourself and I will help you. So Sadman, just checking that you're okay with where we're at. Given you popped in a little bit after the introduction. Just let me know in the chat or just unmute yourself, Sadman, to let me know that you're okay. Can see you're on the Miro board there, which is good.
Sorry, I'm here actually, but like I have like the internet is like I have some issues with the internet. That's why like, I cannot turn on the camera.
That's fine, but you've caught up and you're following where we're at.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. You're here. That's fine. So, excuse me. Not applying for a leadership role. I know that I have a supportive team that I can rely on. That's really constructive self-talk. Okay. In relation to the not applying for the leadership role because I might let the team down, it might be something along the lines of, I will apply for the, I'm not the best leader in the world yet, but I know I can be better and I am worthy of applying for this role. That might be something like what that could look like. I won't be able to find time to continue. If I organize my time well, I'll be able to find time. That might even be something like, I can organize my time well and I'll be able to find the time to do this as a result. That could be more constructive self-talk for that one. You know, I can organize my time well rather than if I organize, because what we're trying to do is get that constructive, positive video going forward that I actually can do this. You can believe in yourself. You can do it. Yes, I can believe in myself and I can have a go. Great example just there. The not speaking out one, we're having a go at that one. Haven't taken initiative due to being embarrassed. I can try my best and have a go, even if it turns out to be wrong. So I can try. I will try. I can do it my best. And I am just learning. I'm just learning. I'm trying to get better all the time. Might be something to consider in addition to that. Often there's multiple self-talks that go. I've got no idea what's going on, so I'll do it later. You know, I'll ask questions now and I'll save myself more trouble later on. Great example of constructive self-talk. I can, and rather than being afraid with that one, because sometimes with questions, we can feel a little bit embarrassed that we haven't understood. So I don't want to embarrass myself. So I'll stay quiet in the meantime. Great examples, folks. We're going to keep going here. So notice your self-talk. Notice what you say. Notice what others say. Remind yourself that you're learning. That's that growth mindset that's so critical for our self-talk. I haven't mastered this yet, or you haven't mastered this yet, but you are improving, particularly when you're talking with other people in your team. These are critical forms of self-talk to utilize. So as we continue through this program, what I would like you to do is the last thing on the Miro board there is we spoke about smart, hard work. For you to be able to do the smart, hard work that relates to your self-talk, is there some obvious smart, hard work that you could go and find, for example? So let's just take the leadership role one at the start, okay? Where it was started out with not applying for a leadership role because I might let the team down. Fundamentally, that's saying, maybe I don't know enough about leadership yet. So coming to a program and attending this program is actually having an impact, whether we didn't necessarily advertise it this way, but this is going to help your leadership for sure. So this is some of the smart, hard work that goes with leading, okay? Now, something else about anything to do with leadership is you cannot learn to lead effectively in theory alone. You cannot just theorize about leadership. You've actually got to get out and do it. Now, even if in the academic world you were a tutor, is that a form of leadership? What do you think? It is, isn't it? It's a form of leadership, right? Because you're influencing the behavior of someone else, all right? If you became a sports coach for junior children, it's actually a wonderful place to develop leadership skills, or to teach people a musical instrument, or lead people in singing, or to get on a club committee. These are all real world places to develop your leadership skills. So the smart hard work is going and finding techniques that you can apply in the real world that you're operating in. Like, for example, right now, it's being on a club committee for that first one. In terms of time management, so the second one, what would be the smart hard work for time management? So I won't be able to find time to contribute. I can organize my time well that I'll be able to find time. That's really useful, constructive self-talk. but what else would you need? What's the smart hard work that you would need to go and ideally do the work on? What would you need to find, folks? So you can use the chat function, unmute yourself, and just have a guess. What do you think, folks?
Maybe you can use some sort of time management apps to kind of help you allocate your time well.
Yeah, like Alina, that's a really good suggestion. What I would check first is that that app is actually coming from someone that's known as an expert on time management. Because these days, someone could have created an app, but they're not actually an expert, and therefore it's not very good. And that could take you down the not smart hard work path. So the first thing is, are they an expert? Check that. If yes, they've got an app, great. You know it's got a lot of research and practice behind it. And so that's going to be worth implementing and putting into practice. So you might go to Amazon and look up the top books on time management skills. And you might, you know, if you can get one for $5 or something like that, you might buy it, because that's going to have the techniques in it that you can then apply. If they've got an app or something like that, then you'd use that too. Does that differentiation make sense, Alina?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a really good example, okay? You can't do it, you're going to fail, so you can believe in yourself. So again, attending a session like today, or watching the recording of today's session to help improve your self-talk might be the smart hard work that could do for that one, okay? Could be as simple as that. Not speaking out because you're afraid that you're wrong or offend others. Just give it just give it a go. Don't be afraid. That's good self-talk, constructive self-talk, but you're going to need to practice something. And what I would suggest that practice would be in terms of the smart hard work is learning how to have high quality conversations. And we're actually going to teach you how to do that in this series. So I'd encourage you to come along to that session and then put into practice what I teach you in that session, because that's going to make a big difference to when you speak up for things that you might be feeling you're not sure if it's going to offend people. The skills I'll teach you will increase the probability that it's absolutely not going to offend people, okay? It'll get you speaking. Haven't taken initiative due to being embarrassed. I will try my best and have a go, even if it turns out to be wrong. What could be the smart hard work for that one, folks? And anyone can have a go at this one. That doesn't have to have been your sticky note. I haven't taken initiative due to being embarrassed. I will try my best. Now, the embarrassed bit, by the way, reflects a mental model. It reflects mental models around your feeling of competence. Okay, I don't feel like I might be competent, and that's why I don't want to risk it. So it's best just to sit back and not have a go. We change it to constructive self-talk, where I will try my best and have a go, even if it turns out to be wrong. Terrific constructive self-talk. I'll be the best that I can be today at this initiative. What would the smart hard work for that one be? What would we need to, remember we said we need to do some research. So for those of us that didn't add that sticky note, what would be the first research we'd have to do to work out what the smart hard work is? And Kieran, feel free to answer if you think you've got an answer too. You're here as well. You don't have to, by the way. I wasn't saying that you have to answer just right now.
No, all good. I've got no idea, to be honest.
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. What we need to do is work, well, what's the initiative you're talking about? Because the initiative is going to actually help us work out, well, what is it? Is the initiative an event, managing an event? Is the initiative doing the accounting for the club? Or what is the initiative? Once we work that out and we've got it nice and specific, we can then go and research, okay, well, what is the smart hard work for hosting an event? And even the type of event might have a different set of smart hard work. If it's being the treasurer and doing the accounting type roles, well, clearly there's some accounting principles that we need to go and do our research on and practice. So the initiative would help direct us to what is the smart hard work we need to do. Okay. Now I want to just check, is there anyone that's got any questions for me in relation to any of the content I've taught here today. Any questions at all, you can either type them in the chat function or just unmute yourself.
So we've talked about like techniques of how to like give constructive self-talk to yourself, but like how do you get into the mindset of being able to give yourself that self-talk? Like how do you get out of that negative mindset?
Okay, great question. Thank you, Kerry. The first thing is not to beat yourself up for having negative self-talk. Some of us just naturally are negative self-talkers. So the first talk that comes in our head is negative, right? I want you to don't beat yourself up for that. After today, just become aware of it and notice it and catch it. Because the moment that we catch it, we can flip it and use that structure of I'll be the best that I can be today at whatever it is. And that's the technique. The technique is to catch it once it comes in your head and then, and so to notice it. So be aware of it, right? Just catch it and flip it. Flip it to more constructive self-talk. Does that help? Yeah. And so what was the key lesson I said about if you're a natural negative self-talker or you just have a lot of negative self-talk, what do I really want to emphasize not to do? What did I say about that, folks?
To beat yourself up too much about it. Yeah.
Spot on. Don't beat yourself up. You know, you can't control your thoughts. What you can do is when you get the thought in your head, that's when you can do something about it. So, you know, if you've got negative thoughts, don't stress about it. Okay. And you know, exams is a classic. I'm going to be really terrible at this exam today, right? Okay. I'm going to be the best at this exam that I can be today. I know I've done the study, assuming you have, right? I know I've done the study. Now, when it comes to smart hard work, there's smart hard work techniques for exams. Which of you, for example, has got a technique that you use in exams that's actually an example of a technique that matters, that makes a difference in getting the optimum marks you can get for that subject? Who's got a technique you actually use for, doesn't matter what the exam is, you use this technique because you know it works and it optimizes your grades. Have any of you got one?
I wouldn't say it's a technique, but I found that sleeping early really helped with bringing my grades out rather than studying all night long.
Okay, well, that is part of a bigger technique. So Alina, having a good sleep before exams rather than studying all night long makes you fresh and enables you to access information when you're in the exam. That's like a macro technique. So that is a technique if it's a process that you found works for you. Okay. Thank you. That's a really great suggestion. Kieran, you were going to suggest one?
Usually I just like set my phone or any of my devices on like do not disturb, or I tell like my closest friends like, hey, I've got an exam. So if I don't join in the conversation about you ranting about stuff or whatever, that's the reason why.
Okay, so that's again another technique leading into the exam, right? About having focused study time. So that's actually a focused study technique that works. Well done. And what I'm hearing about is you're actually in the exam. I'm sure some of you must have some techniques when you're actually in the exam. So the exam, so it was a 1 o'clock exam, and so it's 1 o'clock, you sit there, you got reading time. How do you use reading time, and do you have a deliberate technique within the hour or 2 hours that you've got for the exam to optimize your grades? That's what I'm talking about here.
I think like skipping straight to the questions that you know you have the answer to while in reading time, like identifying, yeah, I've got that. Yeah, I think that works most of the time because you can get marks for those questions.
Yes. Kerry, is that what you were going to say? Because you were nodding away.
Yeah, like using that reading time as efficiently as you can to make sure that like you kind of feel confident going into like those couple of first minutes that you kind of get a little bit of that information first before reaching on doing the harder questions.
Yeah. So for both Kieran and Kerry, that technique is called banking marks. You put them in the bank. You go, okay, reading time. Where are the questions that I know the answers to? And what are the questions that have the most marks that I know the answers to? So if there's a question that's worth 10 marks, right, and another question that's worth 1, you might do the one that's worth 10 first when you know the answer because it's fresh, it's clear, you've just banked close to 10 marks, right? And then you might move on to the other ones. Leaving the questions that in reading time you've identified as, I'm not 100% sure. I'll do the best I can with that. The reason why this works is because some students still use the very old technique of starting at question 1, moving to question 2, and so on and so forth till they get to question 40, right? The problem with that technique is what if they get stuck on question 3? Don't know the answer, don't know the answer, don't know what's the answer, time's ticking, pressure starts to go up. They actually know answers to questions later on. They might know the answers to 35 to 40, but they either don't even get there, or when they get there, they're so rushed and so stressed, they don't answer them correctly and they leave marks in the exam. So having an exam technique where you deliberately bank marks for the questions you actually know the answer to, and you use reading time to help you to identify that, is a classic example of a technique that matters, that you practice literally from one exam to the next. And when you're doing practice exams at home, you practice the same technique. Use your reading time to identify the marks that you can actually bank, and you actually put that into practice while you're studying. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, that's a really practical example to address the question. Has anyone else got a question for me before we wrap up today? Again, you can use...
I just had a question.
Yes, Ritu?
In regards to the smart hard work,
Mm-hmm.
how would you fit in like trial and error? Would you fit it in as part of your research, and how would you feed that back into your self-talk if you fail?
Okay, great question. Thanks, Ritu. So trial and error is a form that contributes to you discovering sometimes a technique that matters. Okay, so you're using trial and error to do the research to find a technique that's going to work for you. And sometimes that's absolutely appropriate. And so you keep using that same self-talk as, I will be the best that I can be today. And also, I haven't yet mastered this, right? The word yet becomes critical in that self-talk when you're on that trial and error journey. Ritu, have you got a concrete example for you where maybe you're conscious, oh yeah, I know I've done a trial and error process. Have you got one that we could focus on?
Not one I can think of off the top of my head, but I guess something like trying to like contribute to a set like meeting or something, and not like it not being appropriate in the situation or something like that, I guess.
Okay. So trying to contribute to a meeting might be that, you know, for example, you might be new to the committee maybe, and you're still getting used to how meetings work, even the way a proper meeting's supposed to run. So you're not sure whether it's okay to speak. And so you might use a bit of trial and error of, I think it's okay to speak now, so I will. And you might get some feedback about that was appropriate or it wasn't. And that could be a form of a trial and error. But equally, you could ask someone that's a more experienced committee member to actually maybe give you a little look or a nod or something when, hey, now it's okay to speak. And that might contribute to your trial and error. Although at the same time, I'm hoping that you're creating committee environments where, and I know this isn't the specific topic, Richard, that you were talking about just now, but I hope you're creating a culture in your committee where it is okay for people to speak, and we're making sure we still do the procedural things properly for our minutes, etc. But we want to create an environment where we're hearing from more people than less people. And the reason why that matters is we know through research that hearing from more people increases the likelihood of you being able to innovate and create things that are going to be useful for your club members. And if we're only hearing from a few people, we're not hearing from others, we're actually minimizing the possibility for innovation. Again, Ritu, thank you for your question. Any others? Okay, I'll just share the screen again just to wrap up today. So today we've gone through that constructive self-talk. The next session is next Tuesday, the 31st of August, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's going to be absolutely fine for you to get other members of your committees to come along, even if they haven't been to these first 2 sessions, because they will have access to the recordings where they can either watch them beforehand or afterwards. They are interdependent, each of these 8 sessions, so that they are sort of feeding off each other. And we're going to focus on how to use creative tension to successfully drive all levels of your club's activities. And the learning outcomes is that by the end of the session, you're going to understand what creative tension is and be able to use it for long-term and short-term goal setting. You'll be able to apply this model to event planning, understand the importance of the 3-step structure that creates what creative tension actually is. There are 3 key questions that you ask. And once you remember that, you can use creative tension in everything in your life, including your studies. And I've got that Zoom link there for you as well. Once again, you've got my contact details there. If you've used LinkedIn, please feel free, as at least one of you did from the other night, to reach out and connect with me. I'll definitely accept your connection request. I'm happy to stay on the line for a few minutes after the session. I'll stop the recording now. And once again, I'd like to thank you for coming along, folks, and I look forward to working with you next time.